Hey, Nichole Huntsman, your astrologer from moderncosmic.com. We're going to talk about the South Node and how to sort of parse out a past life story from someone's birth chart. What you need to do first is locate the South Node on the birth chart. At astro.com, you can actually select when you're drawing the birth chart at the very bottom of the chart selection page. You can select Show Descending Node. It's the same thing. It's the South Node. Okay, so this is the North Node. On astro.com, the North Node will always show, it's a default point that they'll show on any birth chart that you draw up. It looks like a little horseshoe kind of a thing with a T in the middle of it. Okay, this is soul path in this life. This is where you're wanting to head in this life. Now, we want to be paying attention. In this video, we're going to look at the South Node. This is the one we're going to sort of analyze and take apart and see what we can learn from it. Now, this is my birth chart, so I know this South Node quite well. First of all, pay attention to the zodiac sign the South Node is in. This is going to show you the flavor. It's actually the people your same year typically are going to have your same zodiac sign on their South Node. Okay, so the house placement is really important. It's as though the zodiac sign, mine is Aries. That gives it sort of, it's almost an adverb. Okay, the South Node being a past life experiences, multiple past lives that have had themes of having to fight, having to struggle, having to survive, or perhaps being alone, being in a situation where, whether it's circumstantial, 8th house, through the death of a loved one, through war, through some sort of being kidnapped or having one's life taken from them due to circumstances that were outside of one's control, okay? The next thing we're going to look at with that South Node, pay attention to any planets that may be conjunct the South Node. I have a loose, it's a 10-degree orb, Moon South Node conjunction. Moon being home, Moon being the mother. In Aries, it could be that I myself had to be the mother alone, or that I lost my mother. There's themes of losing the homeland as well. You know, 8th house can have to do with war and battle. It can have to do with mining. I actually have a mining past life I'll tell you about in a second. Now you're going to look at the ruler. So the ruler of the zodiac sign that the South Node falls into, mine is Aries, that's Mars. You're going to look at the Mars, locate the Mars in the chart, or whichever planet the ruler is, find it. So with mine, I've got a Mars in Cancer. Now this is interesting because Cancer is ruled by the moon. My moon is in Aries, which is ruled by Mars, okay? So these are some themes here of having to fight to protect home, being ruptured, separation from home and the mother. Again, sort of repeating these Aryan themes, but really sort of it's underscoring this idea that it's something to do with home and with family and with the land, all right? In the 11th house is the house of the collective. So it has to do with friendships. It has to do with groups that you belong to. It has to do with society. And Mars is also, if you notice here, my Mars makes a square. It's an exact square, by the way. So Mars for me, because it's at 15 degrees, it exactly squares my North and my South Node. So it's very important that the ruler of my South Node, my past lives, is that Mars in Cancer. So those themes of having to protect home or having to, 11th house even, that there's something about home that's a little bit removed or separated from, society. These kind of, but definitely battling and fighting for something in a way that's a little bit almost spasmodic in a sense. I mean, a Cancer Mars does not like to be in Cancer. Mars is the warrior, Cancer is the mother. They don't really go together very well. And there are these themes, though, overall of, and then you've got Pluto as well here. So Pluto's not exactly, it's 2 degrees away from my North Node, and it's opposite my South Node. So this is control, domination, power, personal power in the 2nd house, which has to do with resources, and tells us that okay, so let me tell you about, I've done past life regressions, and I've seen about 19 so far. 3 of them are ones that I was able to get names, dates, and like verifiable information about. I did for a 4th one as well that was Native American, but I could verify details about the tribe, but I couldn't verify the individuals, who the individual was. Okay, so first and foremost, let's talk about these 3 lives. So the first one and we'll kind of go through how this makes sense through the astrology. The first one I have had since I was young. I've always loved farms. I've always loved ranches. I've always loved horses, cattle, all of it. Like I've always wanted to live on a farm. You can ask I drew pictures of Adam from the time I can remember. Okay. As I got older and when I was a married adult, I started writing poetry. And when I write poetry, it's very oracular. It just comes out of me. And sometimes it has a lot of imagery in it. And I was writing a lot of poetry about cattle, or about very rural, like being on a porch and sitting on reading my paper, going back to my paper, watching the mare drop her foal, like these, being in the prairie, cotton and sugar, like all these really kind of key words and themes started coming up. And when I did this past life regression, this is actually kind of a more recent one that I did about probably just like recently, like over the holidays. I'd never heard of this family before. I didn't ever know anything about ranching, but I just was interested in it. And it was, the whole storyline, very fascinating, the storyline, the way it kind of unfolded. And when I did the past life regression, I got a name and I got a few details about this life, and like very specific details. And one of them had to do with diamond earrings. One of them had to do with black, that this woman would wear black after her husband passed away. And that was the most significant thing, was that her husband that she loved and was kind of always separated from anyway, died relatively young. And she survived him by another, a long time. Okay. So there's one. And if you look at this T-square that I have, it makes perfect sense. South Node in the 8th house of resources, joint resources. In a marriage, that would be the money you have together as a couple. The moon there being home and family, opposite Pluto, which is death and rebirth. It's like, that Pluto is right on top of that nodal axis. And then you've got Mars in there. Mars is Cancer, so it's the mother, and it's the mother having to sort of be the warrior kind of in the 11th house, which is the community. And this particular family on ranches, you live together with other people. Jupiter in the mix, which just throws a little layer of being a benefactor to the community around using the resources back to the 8th house, and bringing that forward into this life. I'm supposed to remember my personal power, my ability to make money, to be the captain of my own ship, as they say. Okay, so there's one example. A second life was one, a regression I did was one where, and I explained a phobia that I've had. All three of these lives in particular explain just sort of weird quirks about me that I've had since I was little. So this one, I used to be afraid to go in a swimming pool if it had a hose in it, like just a garden hose, or, the intake valve, the intake tubing and stuff that's inside of swimming pools always freaked me out. Viscerally, I hated it. I didn't really ever, I can swim just fine. I like swimming okay, but didn't really like public pools. I still actually kind of bothers me when I think about it. But did a past life regression. This is one of the first ones I ever did, and it was really pretty cool. So the regression starts out, I see I'm, a lot of times in regressions you look down at yourself, and I'm male, and I wasn't expecting that. So I'm male and I'm strong. Like I can see I've got like hands, and they're kind of dirty and big. And I'm in this room with yellow walls. It's like a little bedroom. It's kind of sunny. And I'm getting like the word gold, and I'm getting the year, but it wasn't like the time of the gold rush. So I'm like, okay, I don't know. I have no idea. It didn't make sense to me. And I knew I knew I was away from my wife. And what else about that one? Okay, so that was kind of the setting. So then I sort of knew I was a working man of some kind. And then all of a sudden, the next part of the regression, I'm in the dark, and it's wet, and I'm really scared. And I'm in the regression feeling like terror, and feeling, I have been since I was little, really afraid of small spaces. I've hated elevators. I used to walk up the stairs instead of taking an elevator. I had a friend, my best friend's older brother flipped over a bathtub on top of me out in the backyard, and I truly thought I was going to die. Like I really thought I was going to die, even though clearly I didn't. Anyway, so in that dream, I got the name of the, what was the other? Well, with the date, with the name, and there was enough information where I did some Google searches, right? And then I got the name of the minor. And so I did some Google searches, and I found a particular mining disaster that had happened. And I'm like, well, if the name matches, then we've got a match. Sure enough, it matched. And so with that information, I found a photograph. And with the photograph, there was no names attached to any of the miners, but I knew which one. I'm like, that's me right there. I had that handsome miner. I always tease my best friend. I always like send her screenshots of him. I'm like, hey girl. See, he was handsome. I'm just saying, he was big and had a mustache. He was muscly, had a little dimple. So I wrote to this lady who was an ancestor who had posted this on like a genealogy site just to ask her if she happened to have the names of the miners maybe on the back of the photo or something. And sure enough, that's that miner, that second one from the right, that is the name that I had, which is very cool. So that was my first experience with past life regressions where I got like a validation through multiple sources where it was like, could be validated. And then this other experience, the ranching one is a more recent one. This other experience is the one after coal mining. And it's a recurring dream I had also all growing up of getting shot in the back of the head. But it's nighttime, I'm in a car, and I'm just like, and I just get shot in the back of the head, and there's no pain, there's no fear, I just wake up. Well, I did this regression where with the regression, I didn't really know where I was in this regression initially. Like I knew I was in a vehicle of some kind, but I didn't know, I thought it was a car. But then I realized it wasn't a car, it was just me, and it was cockpit. And then sort of stepping back out away from my location there, I could see the shape of the wings on this airplane, and they had these really kind of football, I even wrote this down in my notes, it was like shaped like a football, the wings. And there was some sort of insignia on the wing, and or it was on the wing or on the body or both, but it was something I didn't recognize, and I didn't think that it was American. But then I was like, it felt World War II-ish, had that sense about it, but I don't really know anything about airplanes. Now, since I was a little kid, not only did I have that recurring dream of being hit in the back of the head, but I used to also be obsessed with listening to air traffic control. We'd go on a trip anywhere, and from the time I was really little, like 8 or 9, all through, even now, I love listening to air traffic control. I don't know why, I just do. And so in that regression, I'm flying at nighttime. I realize I'm a pilot of a plane, and I'm flying on a mission, and I can't see. It's night, and I'm supposed to be able to see, but my instrumentation is not. I don't have radar or whatever it is I'm supposed to have to be able to see well at night, and I couldn't visually see. I couldn't see well enough to see what kind of was going on. I was panicky and kind of scared, and then I got hit in the back of the head. It was just like that. And in the regression, even I could feel the force and the power of the bullet or whatever hitting me, and then coming to. So I did research on that. With that one, I also got a name. That was the one with a name, a date. The date, I got the date of death, which was, I believe, September, which is like my birth month. And just with those 2 bits of information, it was enough. And I knew it wasn't American, so I just did enough research. I found out about the plane, their Spitfires. I found out about the Royal Air Force. Spitfire squadrons were like, very well known. It's easy to find any documentation on them. I thought, well, if I found the name, then there you go. Sure enough, I found the name of the young man who passed away in a night. It was one of the early night missions. They only flew a few because they were bungled, because the Spitfires aren't a good night plane. So that's also in this chart. That's again, that's those themes of war, those themes of sort of like fighting for country, for home, protecting and defending home, but still ultimately like kind of failing in a sense. I feel like the ranching life's the only one I did a good job. The other ones are just like dying on people, abandoning people. So anywho, that is just an example. If you do use astrology and past life regressions, it's really fantastically powerful to use them together, because then you can really draw out a story, and it's the themes you're going to see. These are themes. I'm sure I will find many others. I also will say the 11th house is a very cosmic house. I've always been absolutely I've always loved outer space ever since when I was like 11, 12. I wanted to be an astronaut. That was actually the career I wanted to have during the majority of my like growing up years, and that I was going to be a doctor. And now I'm an astrologer. Go figure. It's probably all past life stuff. But anyway, I've always loved outer space, and I've always believed that there are other places. There's sentient life elsewhere other than here on Earth. I think that's just kind of obvious. And as I've mentioned before, I think even our physical bodies are sort of like radio. It's like we're radios. And I think our consciousness is non-local. I think we simply, however, I don't know the mechanism, but somehow we're able to receive that information through our biology, and here we are. And so I do think we've had opportunities to live other places. I have no problem thinking that that's possible, that we've consciously been elsewhere. And if you want to call it a past life or whatever, or if it's us from the future, I don't know. Time all happens at the same time, so it's not really linear. But 11th house, this Mars is the physical body. In Cancer makes me think of home, and 11th house is a little bit, it's Aquarius. It's a little different than nonconformist. So I do kind of, it's very cosmic as well. So I do feel like I have perhaps come from elsewhere, and here I am. Anyway, that's my take. So let me know what your thoughts are. I will say I will say this thing about the starseed, or whatever you want to call lives that we've had perhaps in other places, is I think anybody who has a strong gift for intuition, psychic gift, they're just things that kind of come with that existence. I think it's having come from a place where you didn't have to necessarily use a mouth to communicate. You communicated in other ways. I think that it's for a purpose that we're here. I think there are a lot of people now here, I read for charts all the time, that are very cosmic looking, and I think they're here to help teach people to evolve and to get there as well. So if you're one of those weirdos, good on ya. All right, let me know your thoughts. Have a good day, and